Are you interested in angels, demons, spirits, ghosts, and monsters? Are you curious about their origins, tales, and influence upon history and on the present day? If so, sit back, relax, and welcome to Southern Demonology, the podcast that explores all of this and more.
How many topics did you say you had on this Excel spreadsheet?
The one I've got in front of me has 1,285.
My Lord, have mercy. Okay. We making squeeze those in a couple of months.
Well, it's time for the rundown of the paranormal kind. Big JJ and David gonna seriously blow your mind.
One guest. Thousands of topics. Unlimited truth. It's Paranormal Rundown time.
Hello, this is JJ, the ancient evil academic.
Hi, I'm David, the absent-minded collector of odd paranormal experiences.
Hello, I'm Vic Hermanson, the cyber-haunted and obsessive purveyor of useless but entertaining information. If collectively we were a bit less nerdy, we might have a collective name like the Paranormal Rundown Rangers, the Paranormal Rundown Renegades, the Paranormal Rundown Raiders. But we don't have a name like that. So let's hand it over to one of my cyber ghosts, Annabelle Lee, to tell us the rules of the rundown.
All I did was put my resume on Indeed, and the next thing I know, whammo, I'm in nerd overload land. I mean, how do these guys survive without handlers? It's a mystery that may never be solved. Oh, well, here are the rules. The Paranormal Rundown allows a random number generator to select 5 points of discussion and analysis from an ever-growing list of thousands of paranormal, unusual, mysterious, and philosophically challenging topics. Very little is off-limits. Then, these nerds, along with their guest, choose a topic from the 5 possibilities to present to you, the beloved audience, in an insightful and entertaining manner. Well, at least they will try to be entertaining. I thank the quantum reality of the universe that they have an excellent guest to help in presenting these topics. Each episode involves as many topics as the guest can endure. This episode's brave, brilliant, and entertaining guest is Father Richard Birdsong. Believe me, Vic, JJ, and Dave could not possibly follow more complicated rules. Father Birdsong, thank you for your intervention, and let's get this show on the road.
And how is your night going, Father Birdsong?
It is going great. Just hanging out and enjoying a little bit of time with Josh, and he's here with me and keeping me straight, so he's got a full-time job right now.
Well, we thoroughly appreciate you agreeing to join us because we had such a good time on our last talk, and I was really looking forward to tonight. So thank you, sir.
Absolutely. Well, I got to tell all you guys, when I heard the first podcast you did, that's when I wrote in the comments, hey, I got to be a part of this. These guys, I love them. Y'all are right up my alley. I love this stuff.
Excellent. As Father Birdsong, JJ, Dave, and Vic appear to finally be ready, I, Boudreaux, the reign of random numbers, and Sultan of stochastic chance, will now choose the first set of exciting and fascinating topics.
Hidden treasures.
Wow.
Egyptian artifacts in the Americas. Truly secret superweapons. Moon and Mars structures. Curses, jinxes, evil eye. I like all 5 of those.
I do too.
I'm
you know,
happy.
given last night, how about Moon and Mars structures?
There you go.
Moon and Mars structures. Okay.
And we just had
How can we pass up jinxes and curses?
Oh well, hey, I was thinking about that in myself, jinxes and curses, but
Well,
you know,
I have no preference. You guys duke it out.
Well, can we break the rules for once? We
Yeah.
can go for both.
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
sounds great.
Yeah,
That's a
no
great
need-
way to start. Let's just break them right off the bat.
Break 'em
There
out
you
the
go.
bat,
Hey. All right, so we're going with jinxes and curses, and what else now?
Followed by Moon and Mars structures. Was that
Right.
right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we just had the lineup last night, and of course the blood moons too. Don't even
right,
get me
yeah,
don't
that's
even
right.
get me started on that. But anyway, we can talk all kind of superstition when. I need to hush already.
I'm probably much better at the Moon Mars stuff than the
There you
curses
go.
and jinxes. So, JJ, why don't you start with the curses and jinxes?
All right, so I can actually talk about this from two separate perspectives. The first can be found in classical Ethiopic, where you find the concept of the evil eye very predominantly. And the interesting part is that the word for evil eye is Buddha. Anyone care to take a guess where that might have originated from?
I'm just going to guess Buddha.
That would be correct.
Mhm.
It was
See, it's that genius IQ I've got.
That's
there.
right.
because there was a major bout of discrimination against Buddhists in Ethiopia at the time. But yeah, so the Buddha is one of the worst things that can befall a person, and it's one of numerous different things that are being protected against in these magical Deptera scrolls that usually pregnant women wear around their neck, but can be extended to almost anybody. The vast majority of the scrolls that I have translated and read are primarily meant to protect against Barya, Legawan, which are the two serpents locked in eternal conflict, swallowing each other's tails, i.e., Ouroboros, but also Shotalai, which is a race of baby-killing demons.
Ooh.
Very akin to Lamashtu from ancient Mesopotamia.
What do the scrolls have within them that protects against the Shotalai?
So when Christ said, I give authority over demons to you, the classical the Ethiopic Orthodox Church took that extremely seriously. And they have adopted a framework where it's not only Christ was the Messiah, but he was also the most powerful magician who ever lived.
Right.
So, and what they do is these priests, these Deptera, who usually die in the most horrendous of ways, they will perform ceremonies where they take a goat, they ritualistically slaughter it. They then take a Solomaic seal of eyes. They will lure a demonic spirit out with wine and 2 eggs, typically, capture the demonic spirit, and then prepare a scroll from the goat skin and scribe the spell onto it, which is then worn around the neck. And the scroll is specifically designed to
JJ, didn't those scrolls, wouldn't they like a sealing scroll which sealed the pact as well?
not kind of, because what the scrolls, they bind a demon
Binding, yeah.
inside of it, and then it utilizes that demon's power in order to fulfill God's will.
So they're walking around with a captured demon hanging around their neck.
Correct.
Yes,
And the demon is acting as a battery.
exactly.
And if I, do you guys mind if I open a can of worms?
Well, we expect you to open cans of worms.
We
You know,
like it.
That's an old Southern saying, by the way, opening a can of worms.
Oh yeah.
But if you take what JJ is saying, and it's absolutely correct, but also the evil eye part, which goes on right along with that, and I will adhere to JJ on most of this. However, but a lot of this, and me being from the South, I'm probably going to be very unliked right now, but a lot of that is also found in the Masonic lodges these days.
Really?
Absolutely.
Well, talk about that, please.
Well, of course, you have the evil eye, and that is the first and foremost sign and symbol of the Masonic lodge. And it all starts in the Egyptian Ethiopic era. And over the years, it has just formed since then. And there's a lot of signs and symbols of these. What's the word I'm looking for? Of the Egyptian gods, so to speak, in the history of the Masons that we don't see today, but they go right along with the signs and symbols of the Christian Church. And I mean, that's just a little throw-in part right there when it starts talking about the sealing of the scrolls as well as the evil eye, and it just goes right along with today and what we see in the Masons. But the Masons, by the way, let me just go ahead and throw this in there. A lot of the lower level of the Masons don't know anything about this. They believe that it is a quote unquote Christian fraternity, so to speak, but it really isn't. That's a whole nother podcast, by the way.
That's probably several podcasts.
Yeah.
Did you know that I'm a Mason?
Oh, wow. Well, then you probably know a lot of what I'm talking about then.
I can't really go into a whole lot of details about it, but yeah, it's fun.
It's fun.
let me jump in here. And David, forgive me if I stepped on your toes or anything, but this is, like I say, an area that I don't really know a lot about. But my understanding is that the concept of the evil eye is pretty much universal in every culture across the world. And it seems to me also that a lot of times it's directed at people who are having good things happen in their lives. So women are very reluctant to say it on the streets. I'm pregnant and I'm happy, because that will attract the evil eye.
Yeah.
Or am I just talking out of, am I just talking ridiculously there?
No, not whatsoever, because that's very true. I mean, it really can be traced all the way back to Mesopotamia, where you have these very capricious entities that, as Irving Finkel, who is a phenomenal seriologist, by the way, is very fond of saying that the gods like to play, and so you can't really depend upon them 24/7 for protection. And so you have to kind of augment that with some magic in order to make sure that you're not attracting the wrong kind of attention.
True.
I have read studies. When I say the word studies, sometimes I take these kind of with a grain of salt, of people being able to sense when someone is staring at them from behind. Someone whom they are not aware of visually. I know I can do it. I've had that happen to me many, many times in my life when I'm aware that somebody is staring at me. But where I'm trying to go with this is the whole idea of a curse. And I mean, everybody on this line is human, I'm assuming. And I tend to think that no human really has any type of innate power that would allow them to curse another human, although I haven't always felt that way. So if a curse is cast from one human to another, where does the power for that curse come from?
Well, I'm just going to jump in there for just a little bit because I was going to use one of my privileges earlier and go back to one of your earlier podcasts about doors. That was a very interesting topic that you guys came up with last time. But when it comes to curses and placing curses, it just goes back to the root word that you just said, curse. You are placing a curse or a damning word upon someone else or upon their life, in their thought, their word, in their deed. And JJ, feel free to jump in at any time on this. But however, from a scriptural point of view, the Bible tells us that there's life and death in the power of the tongue. And also the scripture tells us that I have set heaven and earth as a witness against you, that this day that you will choose life or choose death. And by our words, we are able to portray blessings upon someone in their life or to speak evil. Now, if I'm going to place a curse on someone, I have to be aligned with the quote unquote father of curses. If I am going to portray blessings upon someone, I have to be that of the opposite, right? And it just boils down once again to you have the kingdom of heaven and you have the kingdom of hell. One promotes blessings, one promotes cursings. Does that make sense to you?
Makes perfect sense.
Yep.
So if I say damn you, I am speaking of what Christ would say, you are speaking from your father, the devil, or the God of this world. If I am saying blessings to you, I am speaking of God or the kingdom of heaven.
Can anybody here discuss, what they feel to be a genuine curse upon humans, upon states, upon football teams, whatever? Because I can think of a few curses that were made by, well, isn't there a curse of Tecumseh?
Well, first and foremost, the when it comes to curse, any curse, regardless of what it is, whether it be sickness, disease, or whatever name that you want to put on it, it has to do with death. Plain and simple, first, last, death. Because well, you could ask the question: just people suffer of curses of sickness? Yes, but what's the end root or the end route? Death. Poverty. What's the end route? Death. Now that's just from a point of view from me, but I would like to hear what everybody else has got to say about that.
David,
Well,
we
it's
have less of
certainly
your
suffering,
voice than-
no matter what.
Exactly.
I have seen. So we had a conversation on Discord not too long ago about curses, and it fascinates me, the idea that these things can be real, right? That you could feel direct results of a curse, not even knowing about it.
Yes.
Correct.
And that's scary to me.
It is
right?
very scary.
But I have seen once, and I don't know if it was a curse or a spell of some sort or something, but I knew someone who I watched it on their arm. They had writing appear on their arm.
Wow.
Okay. And this writing it looked like the only thing that I could, from a frame of reference, and, JJ would have, I'm sure, picked it up right away. But those bowls with the spells written on them in Aramaic.
Mm-hmm.
What do they call those, JJ?
The water bowls.
Water. Yeah.
Yeah. So where they should trap a spirit, in it, and they bury it or whatever. It looked like that type of writing. The same sort of letter structures to it. Now, it was only like 5 symbols.
Somebody was about to have a bad day.
Yeah. So I have seen that. And the only thing that I could think that would make that happen is some sort of curse or somebody casting something against someone. And it was spooky, right? I mean, it definitely did not feel right. But I've not known anybody else personally where, a curse was involved that for sure. But the idea that it could happen and that you could go through all kinds of troubles in your life as a result of something you're not even aware of, that to me scares me.
Well, I remember listening to the interview of the head priestess of the Church of Satan back on Art Bell's show. And she would frequently talk about going into the ritual chamber and casting a spell of destruction upon her enemies.
Wow.
And the way that she so glibly put that sent chills down my spine. Whether there's anything to that or not, I can't attest to anything. I have no idea. But
just like it's another Monday, right? Well, I'm going to go in here and cast a curse on somebody.
Right.
Because,
Monday you have. Monday
that's what I do at 11 on Mondays.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One
staff
thing,
meeting,
Barry,
we check timesheets, and we have a cursing session.
Now here's another aspect of this. We've set up this sort of investigation channel JJ set up on the server, and we're listening to this episode of another podcast. And the history that these people are going through, their activity began, if you listen to their podcast, with almost a whispering around them. Like it was coming from all directions. And that was the night of their first activity that occurred. And it makes me wonder if that activity wasn't a result or initiated by some sort of curse that is now stuck with them over time and compounded.
Well,
I've got a few other things that I would, because there's a few different other concepts about curses that I can point to. But I don't want to dominate this conversation. If someone else wants to jump in first, then I can bookend.
Well, maybe I can open the door for JJ on this. When it comes to curses, there's 2 aspects of that we need to realize. If, let's just say, I am a witch doctor or something like that, it's very easy for me to make a sacrifice or something, just like you talked about 11 a.m. on Monday. This is my job. I'm going to sacrifice a chicken and spew his blood all over the place and put a curse on someone, right? Well, on the other side of the coin, for someone to fall under a curse, they don't have to have a curse put on them by someone else. They can walk unknowingly into a curse by their actions as well, just by being at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yes,
and that is very see people.
Now that does not seem fair.
Well,
No, it does not.
Well, you are absolutely correct. It is not fair, but however, we in this time and era that we live in, unfortunately, a lot of people do a lot of stupid things, and I mean, we play with tarot cards, we play with Ouija boards, we go and entertain satanic churches just for the heck of it. We go sit out in the middle of cemeteries and try to talk to dead people. Well, it stupid actions gain stupid results, right?
Correct.
And so you are opening the doors for yourself to be placed under a quote unquote demonic curse.
So
And
opportunistic.
I don't know what you're talking about, Father Birdsong. I've never done anything like that.
I don't think any of us has, right? but I mean, opportune times, if you just happen to be at the right place, I mean, you can do it sometime and not be affected at all.
So
one time you might get.
I totally get the idea that you have actions you perform in your life that may open a door.
Exactly.
And to your point, I mean, I do paranormal investigations. I know that is a possible entry point into my life for problems. That is something that I have to be aware of.
Now, let me make one interjection real quick.
Sure.
A novice does not need to play around with this. And from what I can say, you're not a novice. Okay. No. So let me get that straight.
No, you're absolutely right. It is the less experienced. Of course, you got to get your experience somehow. But but there are risks, and I think I've mentioned that before. There are risks to investigating. That's one of them. But the idea now that you haven't done anything, and you could walk into a sort of trap for a curse. Mm-hmm. That bothers me more. So if you've done something, whether it's, addiction for drugs or alcohol or, witchcraft, something like that potentially opens the door, I totally get it. But it does worry me, the idea that, you're just walking along the street and, you pick up a curse like a bad cold and,
that is the most common trope that you will find in Japanese horror.
Yes.
You walk along, you pick up a red ring, or you pick up a shoe or an umbrella, and that becomes a focal point for a particular curse.
Exactly.
You find that all the time. Now, going to Japanese is really interesting for two different reasons. The first is, have you ever heard of the G? It is the G. The G is an onomatopoeic sound that is done when people are casting an evil eye upon someone who is doing something wrong.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. You can be on a train, you can be in a supermarket, doesn't matter where. And someone, like, for example, a woman puts on makeup or a man begins to eat something on a train. Those are two giant no-nos. And almost as one, everyone on that train will pivot their head and stare at that individual.
Wow.
I have done it myself. And you just get a instant sense of, oh my gosh, someone is breaking the rules. And everyone then participates in the public shaming of that person by staring at them. And the sound, G, is what everyone hears in their head as they are doing it. And it is freaky.
So that's kind of like the old saying of getting the evil eye then, right?
It really is. And then in Japanese, you have actually two different types of curses. You have the word naroi, which just means curse. And that typically more means like magic-based curses. Almost if you think back to like Hondors and Bokors of voodoo. But then you have another word which is tatari. And that's the more frightening version of a curse because it is a probably a corruption of the more ancient word Tachiati. I covered both of this in an episode, but Tachiati it literally means a manifestation of a deity. And if you ever run across a deity, you're probably not going to be having a good time. And Tatati now means more akin to curse or being haunted. And this is exactly if you happen to pick up a strange object and it happens to have a curse attached to it, then you are now officially affected by Tatati.
You have the cheese touch.
I remember one time when I was a seminary student, and I was young and stupid, but anyway, I was in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and we had gone to the French Court area, and I wandered off, not knowing where I'm going, into a place where I didn't belong, and I had on collar, clerics, all that, as a young seminary student walking through this area. And then all of a sudden, I realized, okay, I don't belong here. I got physically and emotionally sick.
Where were you?
I was in the French Quarter, and I found myself walking through like a witchcraft area.
Yep.
And I was so sick that I had to sit down for a moment. And then something told me, you got to get out of here. And as soon as I got out of there, I was fine again. So, light and darkness doesn't play fair with one another. And when you find yourself in the wrong place where you don't belong, just as JJ was saying, you may be breaking the rules somewhere where you don't need to be, and you just had a bad day, and opened yourself something up to where you don't need to be.
That describes just about every trip I have taken with my wife. Okay, she always looks at me as all of a sudden everything gets quiet as we're driving through, and she's like, "You take me to the worst places everywhere we go." It's a gift.
Are you sure you're not listening to conversations with my wife?
I'm actually thinking the same thing, and I'm glad my wife's in another room right now, because she'd be looking at me, giving me the evil eye.
I want to bring it personal, if you guys don't mind.
Okay.
Well, first off, I've been in two places in my life where I felt, I guess, what you were feeling there in the French Quarter.
Yes, sir.
This feeling of, man, I need to get out of here now. And it was totally, there was no logic to it. It was just my mind, my endorphins, my hormones, everything in my body was telling me, get out now.
Mm-hmm.
And when you feel something that strongly, it's my feeling that you ignore that feeling very much at your own risk.
Correct.
Agreed.
Very much at your own risk. And I would never go back to those places. Now, one of the places that I went was a relative of someone very close to me. And I found out later that he was a multiple murderer.
Wow.
And I am fairly certain that whatever energy he carried with him in terms of being a multiple murderer came home with him. Mm-hmm. And I assume that's what I felt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now this is very personal, and probably before I started Trailer Trash Terrors and started talking about all these things, I would never have shared it with anyone. I'm going to reference my father, who was a very different person from the time I was, let's say, 5 to 12, and the time that I became an adult. He had a great many demons, the main one being alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was a child, I would see my father's behavior, mm-hmm. which when he was drunk was monstrous, horrible, abusive. You whatever category you want to put it in, it was. And something inside of me told me I don't want to behave like that.
Right.
I don't want that to be what I'm made out of. And the feeling that I had at that time was that my father was doing something mentally to change me, to make me to where I would accept myself behaving in that manner, which was a pretty dang uncomfortable situation for a little kid to be in. And I can remember trying to talk to my mother about it. I can remember trying to talk to Pastor Juror about it, and nobody even understanding what I was trying to talk about. And later on, I kind of grew out of it. And if such a thing existed, I don't think it worked. But I sure do remember that feeling of mental psychic attack. And I guess that's really as far as that story goes.
You know, I lived with someone in the past who had a problem with alcohol. And when I would come home, and this is a long time ago, but I would come home and I could feel the mood that they were in when I would walk in the front door. And they were nowhere around.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They were in a different part of the house, their own room, office, whatever. And I could tell just, and each day was different, but there was a feeling that I could know the mood that they were in when I came in the door. And it makes you wonder when you have these type of issues, whether it's alcoholism, addiction, or severe personality problems or what, how much potential influence, whether you're feeling a psychic vibe from them or whether something around them, and I'd never really thought about this before, but something around them that potentially influenced them in that behavior, and you're feeling that. Did you ever notice anything like that with your father?
I have.
I'll be honest. I'm sorry, Father Birdsong. I'm going to shut up in just a second.
No.
I don't know. All I know is that something inside of me said mental psychic danger. I didn't even really know the word psychic at that time, coming from my father. And I developed all kinds of things that I felt would be protective, mostly prayers and, repeating things and, how kids think about magic stuff. If I can step on the next 5 cracks in the concrete, then my dad won't be able to hurt me.
Well, I certainly don't want this to turn out into a counseling session, but there's one thing that I should interject. When it comes to alcoholism, and let's get back to curses, the curses of alcoholism. One thing that we got to understand, I like the two of you went through this with my own father. Now, I have nothing against drinking alcohol, but why are we doing it, and what's the heart motive in it? Okay, my Lord, one of the first miracles Jesus performed was turning water into wine, right, for a marriage feast, and they were all having a good time. Okay, now, but on the lines of alcoholism, one thing that we have to remember that whenever we drink alcohol, whatever motive is in the heart, that is which is going to come out. Very important to understand. Whatever's in the heart is going to come to light, and it's going to come out. That's why you ever heard someone saying when they get drunk, they get loose lips or their underwear fall off. You understand what I'm saying? but see, that's so true. And when we see it with people that have a hard time in life. If they're suffering from depression or anxiety or some kind of mental illness, and they're drinking alcohol, that's going to exacerbate that, and whatever is within them, those feelings that they're dealing with, that's going to come out, and it's going to affect their families.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's why you gave yourself this inward vow, so to speak. I will never do this.
That was pretty much it. Yes.
Well, we got to be careful in saying that too, because as soon as we say I will never do this, we're setting ourselves up to fail. And then when we fail or we mess up, we're going to beat the snot out of ourselves. And so that goes right back to curses. We're actually placing a curse upon ourselves. Okay, I messed up. Now I'm going to feel bad.
Oh, okay.
That's just something to think about.
Well, I don't drink anything. I haven't. I mean, I guess communion wine, but
Okay.
but even that's been off the menu since COVID came along.
We're still going strong with communion wine, so you can come see me.
But you're right, though. If you develop that feeling in your mind that you can't fail, and being a human and do fail, then there are psychological payments to be made for that.
That's right. That's right. JJ? Someone said Father Birdsong. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I made a podcast stealing some old footage from the Art Bell show, talking about this woman who called herself Harlot.
Okay. Oh, gracious.
And she was openly, I am evil. It is my position in life. It is my choice in life to be as evil as I can possibly be, to bring as much destruction, to bring as much pain, to bring as much turmoil into the world as I can. And
wow, can you say the whore of Babylon?
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much.
My God.
And she talked specifically about, she had a child that had been murdered by her husband. And the thing that she found that brought her peace and happiness in that is that she had arranged a series of curses on this child prior to the child's death that would assure that child would go to hell. And she was looking forward to the time when she died, because then she could be reunited with her child. And I mean, she's one of the more astounding people that I've ever heard. And I remember listening to her the first time and thinking, this has got to be a put on. But man, when someone maintains that for 5 hours straight with no chinks in the armor, I finally came to believe that she was real.
Well, I do have to say that I have heard stories like that many times before. And it is very real, and it is real big in the satanic community. I mean, my God, guys, we have people in the church. Now I got to be very careful in saying this, but we have people even in the church that are raising up women from sex trafficking to have babies, to actually sacrifice them on the altar to Satan for that purpose. But it also, and I would like JJ to really jump in on this one because I can't think of the name of it, but there is a Japanese practice. JJ, help me out. What's the name of it? That to where they actually groom children and have children born for this purpose.
I don't know, actually.
Josh? It kind of goes back to what you were talking about earlier, JJ. about the two, and I'm thinking about the second one. What was the name of it? Um, at any rate, that's no problem. Josh is looking it up right now, but yes, that is very real, and uh, children are being born to sacrifice unto Christ. And that's one of the main points about this woman and others like her that are such big time um, advocates for abortion, to sacrifice children in the womb and then dedicate them to Satan. And then in hopes of being reunited with them in the afterlife to play havoc on the world. Well, what they don't realize is I'm sorry. Once someone's dead, they're dead. You're not going to be reunited with anything except a demon in your future.
Well, I find that more comforting.
Yes, yes.
Personally. So, well, gentlemen, we've been going on this one for a while. Does anybody have anything they'd like to use as a closing statement, or?
I've got one last thing.
Mm-hmm.
And this is actually going back to Evil Eye specifically. Has anyone here ever watched the series of films called Dabe?
I have not.
No.
I have.
It's good, especially the first one.
Surprisingly, yeah.
Yeah, I was really impressed. So they make, so it's all set in a Turkish flavor of Islam.
Okay.
And they make the argument that the Eye of Horus, which is a very common artifact that you will find in a lot of households in Turkey, is actually a physical representation of the evil eye and will invite evil into your life.
Right.
And I actually had a guest come on and talk about some of that because he was a Turkish Muslim. And yeah, it was just a fascinating concept to me.
Yeah, that was the episode talking about the jinn, right?
Correct. Yep.
Yep.
The Eye of
JJ
Horus, that's the symbol with the little curly Q coming down from the bottom of the eye?
Exactly.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
JJ, what was the name of that?
Dabe, Dabbe. I think you can find that still on Netflix.
I will check that out tonight then. I'll check that out.
But
Thank
yes,
you.
I am now spent.
Okay. All right. I have nothing further to say. Thank you for listening to my childhood fear.
Hey, it was great, and I immensely enjoy the time with you guys. And I'm sorry I took up so much of your time.
Oh, no, you're not.
That's all right. We'll just limit you later on.
Yeah,
There you go.
later.
Because
All right.
I was hoping y'all would invite me back
Well,
and listen to someone else next time instead of me rambling on.
it's a standing invitation as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
I appreciate
But
it.
no, Vic, I really appreciate you sharing what you did, because
Yeah.
although I didn't grow up in a household that was haunted by alcohol, my mom and my grandmother did. My grandfather was a truly evil SOB
Wow.
who murdered my great uncle. He committed untold atrocities on our family. He was a preacher. He drank all the donation money. He was just sheer evil, and he inflicted such psychic damage upon the older members of my family that they still have not recovered.
Wow.
And they may never recover.
Exactly.
JJ, Josh just handed me something, by the way, about what I was talking about in the and I'm sorry I said Japanese, but it's Chinese,
Okay.
and it's Hito Bashira, and that it's well, it says it was practiced formerly in Japan as a form of human sacrifice. A person was buried alive under or near large-scale buildings like dams, bridges, castles.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And that is Japanese. Hito actually means person.
Okay.
And that is a practice, and you actually will find that even in more modern construction. There was a bridge in which there were some accidents that took place, and the bodies were buried in the pillars of the bridge.
That's
And
right.
that is to warn off the avenging spirits of those who died.
So
Okay.
what you're saying is, if I go to Japan, I need to avoid construction sites
And all bridges, yes.
and
You know?
bridges.
And you should probably avoid the Sunshine 360 building, which is one of the most haunted skyscrapers in the world because
Wow.
Well, I
It
don't know
was-
about that.
it was built on the former execution ground for prisoners. I have been there. It is a very, very interesting place.
Yeah, now that sounds like my kind of location. So, but if
Well,
they're not pouring any footers, I'm okay, right?
Exactly. Well, when we meet up in Japan, we might just have to take a trip to Ikebukuro.
Sounds great to me.
Awesome.
Well, I've been in Tokyo. That's Tokyo, and then where I can get on the train from Tokyo are the only places I've been in Japan. But I'd love to do something like that. You know what I like best about Tokyo is when I would get up really early in the morning and go running, and there are all these little pocket parks in Tokyo.
Oh yeah, Cohen.
Yeah, it's just like there's a little, part of a block they haven't built on, and somebody's gone in there and planted trees and benches and all this kind of stuff. And almost every day at 6 a.m, there would be these old men in there doing some kind of, I'm sure it was ritualistic of some kind, but they had a cup, and they were drinking from this cup, but it was not just like you're drinking a drink. It's like they would hold it in two hands and then think and meditate or pray and then drink and then repeat that.
Like a ceremony type
Like
of
a ceremony kind of
ritual
thing.
type thing.
And I just became really fascinated with watching these men do that.
Cool.
And I didn't have enough Japanese to go ask them what they were doing.
It sounds like something like a tea ceremony.
It does, yeah. Okay, do you know how in a really, really good restaurant, when you get finished with the soup, they bring you like a little slice of lemon or something
Right.
as a palate cleanser? Well, I'm going to execute executive privilege and say I'm going to cleanse the palate here just for a minute. And specifically for Father Birdsong, I took our amazing facts list and just searched on the word curse.
Uh-huh.
And it says, it comes up one time out of 1,800 or so amazing facts. One fact comes up, and that is Pink Floyd's Money has the first curse word that was regularly played on the radio.
Well, I'll make sure I go listen to Money here in just a little bit. That's awesome.
And then before we go to the next topic, I'm just going to, if nobody minds, I'm going to go through these amazing facts just because I find them fun. Anybody mind?
No.
Nope,
Not at
go
all.
for it.
Okay, amazing fact 1. The fastest recorded speed a person has ever gone on a bike is 167.043 miles per hour.
How in the world?
All I can think of is just almost straight downhill with, some kind of cowling or something.
And a bunch of weights on your back.
Yeah.
A car pushing you along.
Could be mass equals velocity.
Well, I don't know if any of you guys are old enough, but it kind of reminds me of Steve Austin, an astronaut.
The
A
$6 million man?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
He
Remember
might
that-
have done it.
Remember that sound whenever he was doing something?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, if I ever build a robot, they're going to make that sound when they walk.
There you go.
I don't feel quite so old anymore. Thank you.
Okay, amazing fact 2. The Pope can't be an organ donor.
Wow.
Benedict XVI was issued an organ donor card in 1970. Once he ascended to the papacy in 2005, The card was invalid, reports the Telegraph. According to the Vatican, the Pope's entire body must be buried intact because his body belongs to the Universal Catholic Church.
Wow. Okay.
Which
I did not know that.
Hey, I've got one off your list here, Vic.
yeah, you do it. Yeah,
That's
that's great.
appropriate for Father Birdsong here.
Uh-huh.
A large percentage of the budget for Monty Python and the Holy Grail was donated by members of Led Zeppelin and Pink
Awesome.
Floyd.
I knew I loved that movie.
And Pink Floyd.
I knew I loved that movie.
For those who are not familiar with what we're talking about, right before the show, I get an email from Father Birdsong saying, I'm just getting into the right headspace for the podcast and listening to Floyd. And I wrote back and said, I knew I liked you.
I love it.
Father Birdsong, do you feel like you are being treated properly and everything's going?
Absolutely. I just hope I get an invite again soon. I love this.
Did Vic Hermanson actually say Paranormal Rundown Rangers? I have an alternative suggestion. Did you notice that the first thing the Paranormal Rundown rejects did was discard the rules? I suppose Vic Hermanson's character flaws are necessarily shared by other humans. They have left me with nothing to do. However, I like that electronic chants wheel sound so much, I'm playing it again anyway.
Okay, so I guess we move on to Moon and Mars structures.
Absolutely.
I'll start that one. Does anybody remember Richard Hoagland?
That name rings a bell.
Okay, Richard Hoagland he was actually a serious science scholar, like a science historian. And I think he probably had a pretty good science background. But he was the science advisor to Walter Cronkite. And some years later, he started embracing these really, really weird ideas. Like the moon is covered with these miles-high glass structures. And when the Apollo missions landed, if you look really, really carefully, you can see these glass structures back there in the far background. And he also was the guy who championed the face on Mars.
Oh, I know that one.
That's probably where I've heard his name.
The face on Mars. And of course, he had a whole mythology and a whole set of stories concerning this face on Mars. And then the interesting thing to me was when they finally got better resolution, well, the face kind of disappears. And then he insisted that it was really the face of a cat. And so he was so what was interesting about that to me was that he did not abandon his previous belief. He just adjusted that belief to coincide with the new information.
To fit the current evidence.
Well, the only ice spikes I've ever seen in space was on Armageddon when they landed on the asteroid. So that's beyond me.
Well, I like the topic, especially for the moon, just because of the Artemis launch last night. So, I watched that out my backyard. It's a fast moving rocket, man. That was really cool looking. Although I could only see parts of it because of the clouds. But pretty stoked to see it going back to the moon and checking it out. And I'm hoping that we learn a lot more about it. Once we get there, there's much more available to the public. I think the moon is fascinating for two reasons. One, there's all these theories about it being hollow.
There are.
And
wow.
Two, the fact that, and I'm not an astronomer and I don't understand orbits all that well, but that my understanding is that we're always seeing the same face of the moon, that it actually rotates around at the same rate that it rotates in its orbit on the Earth. So we never see the other side of the moon.
Well, that's
Correct.
called
It's tidally locked.
Yeah, it's called tidal locking, and it's not exact. There is this little wiggle
Right.
throughout the month called libration. So we see a few degrees to the west, a few degrees to the east, but you're essentially right. We see the same face of the moon all the time.
Well,
Which
I just
definitely
go back.
supports the idea that it's a satellite and not an actual moon. It's a hollow structure that's flying around us and observing us. That's all I'm saying.
That was all you're saying.
I just go back to that Pink Floyd is of God, man. I mean, we'll see you on the dark side of the moon.
That's right.
Have you seen the photos of the far side of the moon, since it's not dark, but and how different it looks from the side that we can see?
Oh yes.
I haven't.
The first photos were actually taken by a Russian spacecraft that went and did essentially a fax of the image that it captured. And now with the most recent Chinese rover that was deployed, Chang something, I think its title was. Anyway, it captures that side in much more higher resolution. Thank goodness. It's fascinating.
It's very rugged looking.
Well, let me ask you guys a question.
Please.
Where did the old argument come from? And like I said, you guys may not be old enough to remember it, but the old argument: did we really land on the moon? You know, some people are adamant that we never landed on the moon. I'm like, what world do you live in, folks? Come on.
Well, I can talk about that for hours.
Okay. It was all done in Hollywood, man. I mean, you know, come on.
I've seen the set.
There you go.
Have y'all ever seen the show Adam Ruins Everything?
Yes.
Yeah, I saw that once. Yeah.
It's fantastic. Adam Conover is brilliant, but they did an entire episode just based upon, you know, the amount of technology that would have to be available to achieve what was actually done if they truly tried to fake it. It's just mind blowing. And yeah, there's no way it was ever faked.
Adam Ruins. I'm writing that down. JJ, you keep giving me stuff to watch, man.
That's a neat show. I've seen it.
I'll give you another thing. I'll give you two other things to watch. In fact, if you can give JJ your email address.
He's got it. He's got it.
We won't send it out over the air. I'll send you some of these things. And
awesome.
Are you on the Discord server?
My son is. What's your name, Josh?
Yeah, he's Josh B something.
93.
That's it. Josh B 93. Yeah.
Josh B 93. But, the first guy who started talking loudly about the moon landing never occurring was a guy named Bill Casing. And Bill Casing is a writer. He was a technical writer for one of the aerospace companies. And okay, so wait a second. Just got word that we're getting echoing. So I'm thinking the echoing has to do with how loud I'm talking. So I'm going to move my mic just a little farther away and see if that does anything. But anyway, he came out with this book. I think the book was We Never Went to the Moon. And so there are a couple of things that I find really interesting in all this. He started putting together all these pieces of evidence that were really just poor understanding of the science. Okay, so it's talking things like, well, you don't see any stars. Well, no, you don't see any stars because you've got to have your camera set to not wash out the things that are in front of you. If I turn the camera where it can see stars, then you don't get to see Neil. And it was more important for them to see Neil Armstrong. But this has gone on for a long, long time. And what I've been surprised about is how long it has gone on. The current, well, there are a lot of these guys, but what was that guy's name who got punched out by Buzz Aldrin?
Oh, I know you.
That sounds like a great story right there.
Yeah, it
Bart's,
does.
well, I have a whole podcast about that. Bart Sabrell. A friend of mine who was one of the few female engineers at NASA, was working in Louisiana at the testing facilities there, Michoud, and she wrote a book later on called Something Funny Happened on the Way to the Moon. And she published it and, maybe sold 1,200 copies. And then Bart Sabrell comes along and steals that title.
Wow.
Now, I know you can't really copyright a title, but if you knew Sarah, I mean, it's like the world's sweetest little old lady. Stealing her title was dirty pool. and it made me mad. and so Bart is a very, very unusual and I don't think entirely stable kind of guy. So he accosted Buzz Aldrin in front of some building and started saying things like, I want you to swear on this Bible that you went to the moon. Well, I know you're not going to do it because you're lying. You're a liar. You're a lying liar. It's a pot calling the kettle black. And he just kept going and going and going. And finally, Buzz just punched him.
He deserved it.
Yep.
and of course, everybody in my camp was going, yay! And he, of course, tried to press charges, and the judge said, are you kidding?
Exactly.
I actually, when Bart was not making films and writing books and harassing astronauts, he was a cab driver. And I got in his cab one time.
Really?
Absolutely.
That's interesting.
And he, during the cab drive, didn't want to talk about the moon. He wanted to talk about some fringe religion that he was a part of. But one very, very weird guy. But now we've got the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, which has been up there for a long time now, and it's got the ability to image the moon down to something about 2 feet wide. Okay, so every pixel is 2 feet. So they've been able to image all of the Apollo landing sites.
Awesome.
And I have this very, very weird visual memory. I mean, sometimes I can look at a page of a book and then later just read that page in my mind. I can't do that always. But when I see something, many times it just is a very strong memory in my head. And so one of the Apollo 17 landing site, that was the most ambitious. They had the lunar rover. They were, driving all over the place with this lunar rover. They walked the farthest. They had the most scientific instruments. And so they disturbed the surface of the moon quite a bit. And you can really see it well. When the Apollo 17 mission was over, they launched the ascent module, which had film cameras pointing down outside of one of the windows. And as it goes up and tilts over to start going into orbit, you see all of the disturbance that they did there on the moon. And I remember watching that. And then I remember years later, the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, they published this picture of the Apollo 17 landing site. And my brain just goes, ooh, I've seen that before. And where I had seen it was as that Apollo ascent module was taking off. So I spent some time and, found the best LRO orbit I could find, LRO image I could find. And I found the best frame from that data camera. And I spent an hour in Photoshop lining up craters and, making sure that I was focusing on the footprints, the paths that people walked. So I'd line up the limb, I'd line up the big craters, I'd line up everything I could find that was indisputably the same thing. And you
Are you sure you're not a criminal scene investigator?
well, no, I'm just a nerd, but it's just amazing how beautifully these two things line up. You know, two images taken with completely different technologies, 50 years apart. And so when I run into somebody now who says, we never went to the moon, I just send them that little video and say, please explain this.
Exactly.
And they will generally do one of two things. They'll just ignore me, or they'll say things like, well, of course, if they could fake it once, they could fake it again. All you're doing is lining up two fake photos.
Absolutely.
Now,
That's where my mind goes.
now, it's very, you know, if you want to have an exercise in absolute frustration, then spend some time talking to these guys. They are of a different mental category.
I believe it.
That fall into the same category as the flat earthers.
Yes, they do.
Oh my Lord! Don't even. What do you guys think about the building of the hotels on the moon?
Well, we got to get there first.
I was going to say, can you make reservations already? I'm in.
That's what I'm thinking.
Well, all right. Once again, were you aware that during the Apollo program, Pan Am Airlines sold
you are not about
tickets
to.
To the moon?
Really?
Yes, they did. People bought them. There is no more Pan Am Airlines, but they actually sold tickets to the moon.
That's a lawsuit waiting to happen.
Yeah. Well,
did you buy tickets to the moon?
Yeah.
Call 1-800-LEGAL-IS-US.
Well, I'll tell you what. When I first got married, I told my wife, I said, look, you know, I'm going to do my very best to be a good husband. That means I'm not going to cheat on you. I'm going to love you as much as I can. I'm going to show you that I love you. I'm going to be a steadfast husband. But if the aliens come down and say, hey, Victor, you want to go with us? I'm gone.
I'm gone. I'm out.
I'll
gone. Send you a postcard.
and so if they get to the point where they've got a hotel on the moon and I can get there and have anything of my life savings left, I'd go.
I would too, just simply for the fact that don't weigh as much as we do on Earth. It'll hit my arthritis.
Very true.
I'd go in a heartbeat. I have dreamed about going to space for so long.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'd go to the moon to a hotel, assuming they've worked out the kinks first. But the whole Mars thing, that's a bit far, and I'm not sure they'll work out those kinks in my lifetime.
I think you can count on them not working them out.
Absolutely.
I think they will work them out. You know, I think it'll probably be Musk who works them out. But it's going to be 15 years rather than 3.
Well, to be clear, it will be the smart people that Musk overworks, not Musk.
Yes, it'll be the smart people. Yes, that's true. But he's the economic force behind it.
Unfortunately, correct.
JJ, don't you think they need a priest on the moon?
Oh, yes.
Why not?
Hey, I'm your man.
All right. So, Father Birdsong, were you aware that when they started drilling for oil and building pipelines in Alaska, they were really, really far away from the rest of civilization? And they brought all these men up there who were going to be roughnecks. They're going to be the kind of people who drilled for oil and built pipelines. Completely honorable work, but kind of rough men in many cases.
Sounds like my kind of men.
And your kind of men. And they tried all kinds of things, you know, like limiting alcohol and bringing in psychiatrists and all this kind of stuff. What they finally found that actually worked was bringing in a Catholic minister and a Protestant minister.
Wow.
And having them interact with these men on a daily basis and have church services and this kind of thing. After they brought those ministers in, it became a workable situation. It became a workable site. They had a tremendous and almost immediate social impact on these men.
Wow. Well, way, very much off the topic, and I'm sorry. Just a little,
please,
just a little interjection here, because I really want to get back to the moon and everything. But it's funny that you bring that up. I was in North Carolina probably 20 years ago. I was on a business trip, and I was sitting at a bar at some well-known restaurant chain. And me by myself, I said, I'll just sit at the bar and eat. And I'm sitting there eating, and this gentleman comes in, starts talking with me, and starts talking about his day. And he orders a beer. He said, "Can I get you a beer?" I said, "Sure, why not? I'm not going to turn it down." And so I'm sitting there drinking a beer with him, and then he finds out that I'm a priest. And just sitting there, just like the guys that go to Alaska with these roughnecks, so to speak, just sitting there having a beer with this guy and listening to him, I was able to minister to him and hear his confession and give him absolution right there sitting at the bar. He was a fine Catholic gentleman.
That's awesome.
Isn't it, though? That's what I thought. Yeah, that's what it's all about.
Well, I mean, those are the kind of experiences. Look, I'm not a priest. I haven't done what you've done, but those experiences stay with you.
Exactly. And see, we make, well, I need to hush. We're getting way off topic. But anyway.
You got to understand that the topics are really kind of suggestions.
They're rough guidelines.
Well, I just said all that, I mean, people put this great stigmata type thing on Christianity. No, we're just a bunch of people doing the best we can with what we know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what everybody needs to realize. But anyway, I want to go visit the hotel on the moon.
Well, you'll be under tons and tons of regolith. So we got to dig a big hole.
There you go.
And that'll probably come from the Elon Musk Boring Company.
Oh my Lord! No, you didn't.
It probably will.
Oh, gracious alive!
And I mean, you'll probably land on a starship.
Can I change my name to James T. Kirk?
I don't think this sort of thing's going to happen when I'm physically capable of participating in it.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm probably older than you, bud. So hold on.
Yeah, but I just don't think I'm going to get to participate in this in my lifetime.
So you're breaking my heart, man. You're telling me that I'm not going to be able to participate.
Probably not.
Okay.
But, you never lie to a priest. That'd be bad.
There you go. JJ, save me. Jump in here, man.
I honestly have nothing. I just have to throw this in there for meanness sake, because I'm a very opinionated and stubborn person.
Oh no!
Watching Twitter go down into a literal dumpster fire.
Here we go.
What?
In the past 3 weeks has been the most delicious thing I have ever seen in my life.
What's happening, bud?
Oh my God. Everyone thought that Elon Musk was going to come in, play 10-dimensional chess, and just transform it and save free speech, which is the most ludicrous thing I've ever heard in my life. And instead, half the company has been eliminated. There's actually an ultimatum was issued today where he said the bar is going to be set ridiculously high, and unless you confirm that you agree by abiding by that philosophy, then take a 3-month severance and you're out of the company.
Well,
Yeah.
Elon Musk played chess, but obviously he's never heard of the Queen's Gambit.
No, he is playing like fourth grader checkers.
All right, you got Josh laughing now.
All right, I will shut up now. Sorry.
I want to go back to Mars.
Yes.
Were you aware that many years ago now, I think in the mid 80s, there was a probe, a lander sent by the U.S. to Mars to do some experiments on the soil there. And the very first experiment they did,
That's the Val Kilmer movie, right?
Except for the robot dog. But,
Okay.
but anyway, they found chemical indicators of life in the Martian soil. Just the very first time they did that. And NASA immediately incinerated those experiments. They didn't do it fast enough for the data not to get back into the world. But many people, probably including myself, think that very first lander found life on Mars.
Okay, let me introduce a conspiracy theory here.
Okay.
Isn't it amazing? Now, see, I jokingly brought up the Val Kilmer movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was the name of it? Red Planet?
Something like that. Yeah.
Something like. But isn't it? Correct me if I'm wrong. But isn't it amazing thinking about what you just said and that movie that there's always some kind of truth in Hollywood?
Oh yeah, that is interesting.
That's just a little tidbit thrown out there.
Well, I think, a lot of people have talked about Hollywood being used to kind of gradually introduce people to problematic ideas.
True.
Now, truth is, Hollywood's become so bad. I don't believe I've watched a new release movie in
I haven't in many years.
2-3 years.
Yeah.
I just find that I'm really happy with the movies that were made in the 80s and the 90s.
Exactly.
and I can see those. So, anybody else have anything they want to say about this?
Only thing I will chip in is the latest rover that was sent to Mars. The fact that they included a microphone.
Wow.
Yes, that's true. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And to hear the desolate wind blowing over that landscape was just chilling. But then to see how close people are paying attention to the images and vistas that are being beamed back. Who remembers the doorway that was found on Mars just a couple of months ago?
I do.
Doorway.
Yeah, there was a rock structure that resembled a door and had people all kinds of excited. And of course, it was nothing like that. But still, it's that same thing of being able to see a face in a random conglomeration of objects. We look for meaning everywhere that we possibly can.
Yes, yeah. JJ, where can we hear the sound bites that you're talking about?
I know that it's on NASA's website.
Okay.
And in fact, I remember watching one of the first pieces of coverage about it. And there was a young woman who was very interested in STEM, who was blind. And her sister was narrating because she got to play to her blind sister the first sounds of Mars.
That's pretty doggone awesome.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
she was able to participate in the excitement of what everyone else had been, so excited about in terms of the whole space exploration concept. So it was really touching. I really, that stuck with me.
So they sent a microphone and a helicopter.
Yep.
That's pretty doggone awesome.
Vic Hermansen once recommended that he, JJ, and Dave call themselves the League of Hierophants. Where did he even learn that word? There is a Hierophant tarot card, which refers to an intellectual master, a powerful mind fully dedicated to the learning and teaching of practical lessons, derived from the study of natural law. Right. JJ and Dave realized that at least one of the three did not qualify for this title. I am sworn to secrecy, but the name of the odd man out rhymes with Zick Vervansen. Now, let's choose another topic.
Oh, JJ's going to be happy.
Uh-oh.
I like that.
Okay, first topic 1, Azazel. I think that's how you say that, right?
Josh, did you hear that? Yeah, that's how you say it.
Azazel, because
Azazel or Azazel. Or,
yeah, on Supernatural they say Azazel.
Yeah.
Which is horribly, horribly wrong. It's Azazel. You got it right.
There you go, JJ.
those simpletons. Topic
JJ,
2.
does Azazel bring back memories of our story?
Of course it does.
Oh my God! I mean, guys, when you see a 13-year-old girl draw a picture of this demon, I mean, to a T with color pencils, it is absolutely freaking mind blowing.
That would be.
It was. That's a whole nother story, though. But anyway.
Well, maybe we'll come back to that. Topic 2, feral children. Topic 3, the anthropic principle. Topic 4, fairies, fae, trolls, ogres, gnomes, elves, pixies, goblins, etc. And topic 5, swamp gas.
Well, you know which one I'm going to go for.
Let's
it
just
has to be the swamp gas.
Swamp gas.
JJ, tell us all about swamp gas. You're the expert here.
Well, after the chili I had last night.
I'm sorry, guys.
That's okay.
It reminds me of Luke Skywalker landing on Dagobah, swamp gas. And JJ's chili. I'm going to remember that. Oh, my God. Oh.
So JJ, are you going to inform us about swamp gas? Or are you guys going to tackle the Azazel topic? Or Azazel?
I would definitely run with Azazel, yes.
Okay. I'm going to let you guys run for a second. I'll be gone for 1 minute and 24 seconds.
All right.
Go for it. Actually, I'm going to turn the table over to Father Birdsong because I think everyone would like to hear the story that you just began.
Okay. Well, of course, we know Azazel or Azazel. He is one of the main principalities. Of course, there's an order in the demonic kingdom. You have the ruler, which we know is Lucifer, and then the principalities from where Azazel comes from, and then we have what's called rulers. They're all bad, but I need to throw in there that there is an order. But several years ago, I was called to a home. This woman called me. She was in dire straits. Her 13-year-old daughter had gotten mixed up in Wicca, which is very prevalent right now in our nation. And I did not realize that until this happening. But anyway, all kind of weird stuff was happening in their home, and I'm going to make this as short as possible. I would really like for you guys to go back to listen to part 1 and part 2 of JJ's podcast. What was the name of it, John? Huh? The Kingdom of Hell. That's it.
Yep.
That's it. But to make a long story short, I was called, and we wound up in a full-blown exorcism of a place. Um, uh, and then we did a exorcism of a person, but it was not direct. There is a rite that you can do if a person is not there, and thankfully it worked. The young girl is a very vibrant, beautiful young lady these days. But anyway, I had to actually tell everyone in the house to leave, to go outside, to where it was just me and my authority. It was actually my canon theologian that was with me. And the Spirit of the Lord gave me a word of wisdom at that time, said to look under the bed. And we looked up under the bed, and there was a tote of some things that belong to the young lady. And she had drawn a picture of Azazel, and it was to a T. And at that point, as many of you may know, it gave me a point of reference as to who was in authority over this home at that time. And it is a very, very powerful demon. You don't play around with this guy. And when you jump into modern religions as witchcraft and paganism and things like that, you're really opening that door for this guy to come into your life. And it is very hard to get rid of. And that's another time in my personal life in doing battle with this presence that I became physical ill. I told JJ, as a matter of fact, when this was over with, I was physically, mentally, emotionally spent. It took me, about 4 days? Mm-hmm. It took me about 4 days to recover from this. And see, people think that when you're playing around with these things, that it's, just a few minutes and it's over with. You done had a bad day if you believe in that mess. I tell everyone today's believers' authority stuff that they teach, that's enough to take you down to the neighborhood bar and get your rear end handed to you. Azazel don't play, and he's got a history. He was there with Baal from the beginning, and very, very dangerous adversary.
So let me ask a question, if I can.
Please.
So you're looking at a drawing.
Yes.
And you're saying that it stood out that this was Azazel. So
yes.
What are you comparing that to? What's your reference?
Well, as JJ and I have spoken in the past, and this is why I love JJ so much. He is a history nerd. Did I just say nerd? JJ, I love JJ.
You're right.
He is a bookaholic, man, and I love him. But I always go back to the beginning. I don't base anything on today's books. I go back to the church fathers, into the early church drawings, even into the Egyptian stuff. I mean, you can find demonic drawings from way back, even of Ashtar or Ishtar or Baal, and I contrast all these drawings, and I look at them regularly to know what I'm looking for. And you would be surprised if you look at history what you can see today. A very interesting point. Did you know that the demonic person Ashtar or Ishtar is a split image of our Statue of Liberty?
No.
Look it up. Or I will send JJ a picture and then he can pass it on. Josh, do that right now, as a matter of fact. But yes, I go by history in old accounts. And so soon as I saw it, I knew what I was looking at. That is why every person that even thinks about going into the quote unquote office of an exorcist, if you don't have an education or a history of the demonic, like Ishtar, like Baal, Azazel, so on and so forth. I mean, there's so many we can name, but you got to know what you're looking at. You got to know who you are coming up against. You got to have an education. You just can't go out there thinking you know it all, because you don't. These things are real, and they will kill you physically.
May I ask some prosaic questions?
Yes.
So you found this drawing. Were there other drawings by this girl, or?
No, because when you come against a principality like Azazel, he represents so many.
Okay.
But he is the head, if you will. Let's just say in America we have governors over certain states, right?
Correct.
He's the governor. So
Okay.
anything below him really doesn't matter.
Right.
It's kind of like the old analogy, like how do you kill a snake? You cut off its head. In the South, we grab a garden hole and chop his head off.
Yes, you do.
know. So the same point is with that. He's the head. So if you take care of him, you've taken care of the rest.
All right.
He is what matters at this point.
Certainly when you were dealing with this young girl.
Exactly. And so if anything comes up after that, yes, you need to deal with it. But that's a whole nother podcast about the after effects. Maybe we should talk about that one day, the after effects of exorcisms.
I think that's a perfect podcast.
Absolutely. There's a whole in which JJ, I apologize, I'm sorry, but this Saturday we will be going live and I will have you the class.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Yes, sir. It's my bad. I will go back and do part 1 and 2 and get it recorded and downloaded. But we'll see.
So, can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we're talking about Azazel.
Azazel, yeah.
Azazel. And look, I'm sorry for my ignorance here. I'm Catholic, and I have not spent a great deal of time studying these things. I spend a lot of time listening to other people talk about them.
Well, Father Barron, so he's a great guy for learning.
So Azazel would have to be a creation of God. Is that correct?
He is a creation of God, but he was one of the fallen with Lucifer.
One of the fallen with Lucifer. Okay.
Yes.
But still would be under the authority of God.
Yes.
So whatever he is doing, God must be giving him the authority to do so.
Well,
Yes.
However, okay, that goes back to part of JJ and I's conversation. Every person has a free will.
Yes.
So if you invite that presence, to come into your life, then you are inviting it to do whatever.
Right.
And so yes, God gives this entity permission to do what he needs to do. That's why Jesus called Lucifer the god of this world, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Lucifer's minions, or his soldiers, so to speak, they have authority and permission from God to do what they need to do, just like they did with Adam and Eve.
And
When-
I think that there's a concept here, though, that God allows things to happen that's not necessarily invited in. So you take the story of Job. Job
True,
did nothing
true.
to invite that
Job
on
did
himself.
nothing.
God
Job
allowed
Did
it.
nothing. Mhm.
Exactly.
God had a purpose for it.
Exactly.
And, that's not for us to question in my
Correct.
mind. It is. And I think that these things happen sometimes through something you've done in your life that, we've talked about, open a door or what have you.
Correct. Absolutely, sir. Yes.
And in some cases, not, because it serves some purpose of God in your life. And what you do with that drives what happens next.
Well, that's a very interesting point that you just brought up, because that goes back with, or goes to the point with Padre Pio. As a matter of fact, Padre Pio, throughout his whole ministry, was plagued by satanic attacks.
Mm-hmm.
Did Padre Pio bring him on? Padre Pio was one of the most pious men that we've ever known. Padre Pio even had the stigmata. However, he was attacked and demonized his whole life. Now, God allowed that to happen, but we also have to understand, just in the case of Job, that we live in a earthly original sin tent. Okay? In other words, we are born into original sin. And with that original sin, that door, if you will, is automatically opened. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, that's the doctrine of original sin.
Exactly. But I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page here.
Mm-hmm. I've got to I always ask the weirdest questions.
Go for it. No, ask them.
Okay,
You're right up mine and JJ's alley now.
I'm just thinking about being in a hospital.
Okay.
Okay, and you get a patient coming in. They have some vague symptom, and you start doing the tests that are necessary to find out what's wrong with them.
Right.
Okay, sometimes you get these tests back, and it's still not clear what's going on.
Correct.
Sometimes you get the test back, and you're saying, "Oh my God, he's got a 1.5-inch glioblastoma in his brain."
Wow.
Or you see
now hold on.
Uh-huh.
That sounded terrible, and that's why I said, "Oh my God!" But what in the world is that?
Terrible. A glioblastoma is just a type of brain tumor,
Okay.
Arising from the glial tissue, and if you get a glioblastoma, you are going to die. Probably
Okay.
within sometimes within a couple of weeks of the time that they discover it. If you live a year, that's remarkable.
You've done well.
You've done well. If you live a year, so you see that, or you get back their blood sugar and it should be 100 and it's 900. Or you see these horrible things that happen in people, and there's this feeling of just this just this electrical feeling up your spine of, oh my God, that's what we're dealing with, and it's a feeling both of despair and
Dread.
fear.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking about, you're here in this household. There must be a moment when you say, I'm dealing with Azazel. And I can't imagine the kind of fear that would cause.
Well, it's funny that you brought that up. Okay. Let me tell you the whole story. So we're there at this home, in this feeling of overwhelmed. The only way I can say it is dread. comes upon me.
Mhm.
And yeah, I'm a priest, okay? But can I speak plain English to you?
I expect it.
I was scared as hell at this moment.
Well, of course. And I'm happy to hear that because
well, yeah, I mean, because this sense of dread come over me, and I'm like, hell, I'm about to die.
ooh, yeah.
That's how I felt at that
Mhm.
time, and that sick feeling came over me, and it was at that time that the presence of God came over me and said, "You're dealing with Azazel, or Azael, or Azael, however you say the name."
However you say it. Mhm.
Anyway, I don't want JJ to get on to me.
I wouldn't do that anyway.
but like I said, this is in the original podcast. All right, so I was told that, and then I was told, look under the bed. And that's when we looked under the bed and saw that. See, we got to understand that as much as the enemy has free reign, God still has authority.
Correct.
And it's that authority that spoke to me and said, look under the bed. And then that's when we saw it. But if you look at the actions that Azazel is over, it was the exact actions that these girls were going through and doing, even unto self-harm, like cutting themselves, sexual confusion, and thinking that she's supposed to be a boy.
Mhm.
See, none of this is new. It goes all the way back in history, even into the pagan worlds. I mean, all this is, I mean, Ecclesiastes says there's nothing new under the sun, and the same goes today. The same things that these presences brought way back thousands of years ago is the same stuff that we're dealing with now. And anyway,
So let's do some historical backgrounds real quick.
yes, sir.
So actually, just to touch upon Job, a few points.
Yes.
Job is actually an ancient story. It has
Oh,
one that
the oldest.
it has circulated in the ancient Near East for centuries before it was ever officially written down, and it predated Judaism by a decent bit. In fact, the story that we know of now as Job, it got a Hollywood ending.
Yes.
In the original story, Job did not get a new family. He did not get new riches, new houses, new servants. He was left the way that he was, and that was the end of the story. And then the fire tornado came about, and
Right.
a new family was gifted to him. But I always remember professor when we were covering this book for the first time, and he said, so was Job's life automatically better at the end of all this?
No, his life was hell.
Yeah, I mean, because his original family's dead.
Yeah.
They're not coming back. Doesn't matter, he got a new one. All of that stuff went down.
Exactly.
But anyway, and actually in other people, they like to confuse this discussion between, it's God and Satan, right? And the answer is no, it's not.
No.
It is Ha-Satan, which is a Hebrew term for the chief prosecutor.
Correct.
And yeah, a lot of Christian sects get that idea wrong. But anyway, let's go back to Azazel. So Azazel is so first, there is actually no word for demon in the Hebrew Bible. the closest that you can find is Sha'ir, which
Yeah.
is a goat type of entity, which
Correct.
is usually found in the desert Dudael.
Yes.
However, Azazel is a name that is mentioned in Deuteronomy, and it refers to a particular rite that we don't really know what it refers to. Now, the name is interesting because if you break the component parts down, when you're dealing with angels, you get El as the last phrase, and that is Aleph Lambda, which is short for Elohim. So Michael, Mikael, who is like God, etc. Well, Azazel, you would think that that fits the same kind of pattern, and it does not, because
Absolutely.
it's not Aleph Lambda, it is Ayin Lambda, which is short for goat. And we think that the actual Hebrew term means like the loosing upon or blaming a goat, and that's where we get scapegoat.
Yeah.
But we still don't really know exactly what this rite is referring to. Is the goat Azazel? Is the goat just being sacrificed to Azazel? Who is Azazel, etc.? And a lot of Jewish thinkers, especially ancient, would love to hypothesize upon what these things actually mean so that they can extract what the quote unquote true meaning was supposed to be. And we find that within First Enoch, where you have the Watchers who were sent by God.
I
to
knew
watch
I loved
over-
you, JJ. Here we go. I love the Book of Enoch. Okay.
Who was sent to watch over the generations of man. And I'm just quoting here. I'm not trying to be misogynistic in my language. And these group of angels saw that the daughters of man were comely and decided to bind themselves in a curse. And that's the actual terminology that's used in classical Ethiopic, where they wouldn't turn on each other and they would all agree to do this thing. Now, the interesting part is that the leader of the Watchers is Semhaza. And you would think that Semhaza would have the greatest sin ascribed to him because he was the chief of all the Watchers. And no, it wasn't. It was a name was reached back into the past. They plucked out Azazel, and that became the most major transgressor. And he taught some of the most horrible things to humanity, such as weapon making and metallurgy and makeup, strangely enough, along with some magic. So that's where we kind of get Azazel from a historical standpoint. And then, of course, we have the most horrible movie ever made, Fallen, with Denzel Washington, where they then prance around mispronouncing the demon's name the entire time. So anyway, just to give some context.
Or the Fallen Watcher Angel.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've never seen Fallen.
I did a long time
wish
ago.
Don't waste your time. You let me tell you, instead of watching Fallen, JJ, forgive me, but you'd be better off watching the movie Noah.
I have. I like that movie a lot.
Yeah.
The one with Russell Crowe?
Yes.
Yeah, the first time I watched it, it took me about 15 minutes to figure, Enoch.
Well, yeah.
and
you have to eat the fish and spit out the bones, as I say, but it's a pretty good movie.
yeah, but the second time I watched it, I decided, this is kind of brilliant, really.
It was.
But, it seemed like there was some of it that did not make sense to me, and I it's been a while since I saw it, so I don't remember.
Well, like with all of Hollywood movies, you have to eat the fish and spit out the bones.
Spit out the bones,
but let's go back to what JJ was just talking about, and he is absolutely correct. We don't know a lot about this entity. We don't know a lot about Job because Job was, if you look at the canonical scripture, this book was the oldest ever. I mean, we tend to think that everything started with the Pentateuch, but it didn't. I mean, Job was way before all of this, and unfortunately, there's not a lot of writings that we could go on. But everyone tends to glorify this story of Job, that it was all rainbows and unicorns at the ending, but it wasn't. Job went through hell. Job, I mean, this guy fought. Well, let's just go ahead and say Azazel put this guy through hell. I mean, he lost his family. He lost everything that was with him. His friends forsook him. And
so let me point something out from my perspective. The ending of Job is irrelevant.
Exactly.
Right. Whether Job had a happy-go-lucky, wonderful life that was 10 times better than when he started, or whether he died in poverty with no family and not a penny to his name and just a horrible feeling because of what happened.
When the rubber met
the
road, the guy died redeemed. Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm. He stuck with his faith.
Exactly.
And the point of it is that God allowed that to happen.
Correct.
Right back to what we talked about originally.
Original sin, though.
And God, well, whether it's because of original sin or whether it's because whatever it is, God allows bad things to happen to good people and bad things to happen to bad people. And that is part of what makes life interesting.
Thank you.
Right? Because if we didn't have challenges, if we did not have horror stories to tell, then we haven't grown.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think that God's purpose in many cases is for us to grow, either closer to God or closer and stronger in some aspect of our life and our faith.
Yes.
And, I've seen that in my own life. I've had my own trials and tribulations, and no, they weren't fun and they were horrible. And no, I don't think I necessarily deserved all of it, but I know I deserved some of it.
Absolutely.
I'll own it. But at the same time, that is part of what made me who I am today. Correct. And I'm stronger for it. So yeah, it's hard to think, well, God can allow bad things to happen. But at the same time, if life was perfect, it'd be kind of boring.
Yeah.
I find that in the last year, specifically in the last year or so, I've run into a lot of people who are, I don't know, I guess I would say theodicy extremists. If there is a just God, why are there so many horrible things happening in the world? The standard theodicy question. And I've stopped trying to explain it, but I have come up with a thought experiment. And the thought experiment on my part is, okay, let's say that God is an entity, a being, such that what you say really matters, and that he is going to adjust his behavior to fulfill your wishes. Where do you want God to draw the line?
Yeah.
As to where he's going to intervene.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, are we talking wars? Are we only talking world wars? Are we talking minor holocausts? Are we talking just major holocausts? What about what about schoolyard bullies? What about tax cheats? What about abusive husbands? What about abusive wives? What about the kid down the street who tortures kittens?
You know what I think?
What?
I think a lot of times we do not want God to intervene in anything until we want him to.
Correct. And I'm comfortable with the idea that, look, there are going to be bad things that happen to me.
Yes.
And I find that my faith in God helps me to get through these things, because I can remember times in my life when that faith was gone, when that faith was not there. And life was much, much more challenging at that point.
We keep, this is I think the second or third time that we have danced around the subject of theodicy, and we will have to tackle that at some point in time.
It's on the list of 1300.
There you go.
I promise you. But
So the chances are, in the next 1,000 shows, we will hit it.
But JJ, in your case and in your experiences, do you think Azazel had any influence in your upbringing?
Probably not.
Okay.
At least not that I'm aware of. I've encountered some pretty evil things and horrible things.
That's why I asked the question. I was just curious.
So I would say that there probably was a decent bit of evil influence that I have experienced through certain people and certain circumstances. However, I will happily say that if it were not for the redeeming influences of my mom and my grandmother,
Yeah.
who filled my life with such love that it completely overshadowed any of the negatives.
Well, one thing, JJ, that I'm always interested in with your background and your knowledge, I know that we call this demon Azazel, but I'm always curious because it always correlates with the Orient. In the Japan or China region, who is the equivalent?
The equivalent of what? Sorry.
Of the demon Azazel.
There are so many evil.
Okay.
There aren't deities, but there are so many different yokai and yurei and bakemono that I can't think of a decent equivalent.
Okay. That answers most questions. So Azazel's a pretty bad guy then.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I did an episode on the names of the devil that I really have to complete at some point.
Wow. Okay.
But yeah, there were many contenders to find, because ancient Judaism was not dualistic. There was no enemy. God controlled everything, whether it was destruction or life-giving essences or lying spirits, doesn't matter. God controlled it. And then there's a debate as to what really kind of brought on the introduction of a dualistic enemy. Was it just the temples being destroyed? Was it the Babylonian exile, in which brought Judaism into contact with Zoroastrianism, which had the most advanced dualism of any religion living or since? And in fact, Christianity inherits so much from Zoroastrian dualism. But yeah, there was a quest to find out who is the enemy of God. And so many names were thrown at the wall, from Baal Zebub to Baal. But one of the biggest ones, especially in the beginning, was Azazel.
Ah, okay. Has the people on Discord lost you?
I'm still here.
Don't think so. I did.
Yeah, they've
mute
lost your
myself.
voice, JJ.
Well, crap. Okay, I have unmuted myself. Yeah, I was muted on Discord.
Okay.
I was thinking that may have been causing some issues.
Oh, that,
Oh no,
so
no.
Y'all hear a
Josh,
one-sided conversation.
no, it's just Josh looked at me and said, "I can't hear him."
Okay, well, hopefully that will solve that
It
problem.
is. It is. You're good.
We'll
now.
work it out eventually.
So in the Bible, they talk a lot about the worshippers of Baal,
Yes.
however you
Yes.
say that.
Baal or Baal.
Baal.
Are there
Baal.
still worshippers of Baal?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What do they call themselves?
Not in an official sense. I mean, there's always going to be crackpots out there
Yeah.
and small cults that will worship some horrible thing or another. I'm not aware of any kind of modern incarnation into the cult of Baal,
Mhm.
but who knows?
Well, there is not a quote unquote cult of Baal today, but I don't know if you guys are aware of it. And I just saw this recently, but it goes right along with what I have been doing some teachings on. But Robert Kahn just came out with a book called The Return of the Gods.
Really?
And yeah, and that goes right along with what I was saying earlier from Solomon from the book of Ecclesiastes, that there's nothing new under the sun. I mean, listen, we just need to go ahead and understand that we're fighting the same demons we were 2,000 years ago plus. Okay. And Baal is one of them, along with his sister Ishtar or Ashtar. And what's that? And Moloch. And and we are still fighting those same things today, but they are coming back on the scene because, I mean, let's just go ahead and face it. We as a country, and it goes right back along with those doors that we were talking about earlier, we have opened the doors to these presences to come right back into our lives. And which this is a whole nother podcast.
Probably several.
I mean, we can go into where it was destroyed back in the 1700s and to the point to where we allowed it back in. But we've allowed these things to come back, and like I said, it's not a quote unquote cult of Baal, but the spirit thereof, if that makes sense to you.
That makes total sense, and I would agree with that. I mean, we could at some point we need to add in the concept of Alistair McIntyre, a master philosopher
Yes,
from Vanderbilt, who
yes.
said that we lost the ability to have a moral discourse in the year 1947.
Well, that's very doggone close to it, JJ.
What is special about 1947?
I do not remember.
Okay.
Well,
I will have to go back and reread it. It is a very, I remember it being a truly interesting argument.
Well, 1947. If you look at those years, we were kind of in between wars, right?
Correct.
And then comes the 1960s, and then here comes the whole Vietnam conflict. Well, all in the same time, we come upon the make love not war era. And that's when a lot of all that started back, so to speak. And a lot of the quote unquote witchcraft of the day started coming in, the sexual revolution, the everything goes type of attitude. And that alone, well, like I said, this goes into a whole nother podcast, but it opens the doors to those spirits of sexual immorality and Satan worship and um, I don't have time to go into it, but a whole lot of ungodly things debauchery and stuff. I mean, it just goes on from there.
Well, you're describing, and please tell me if I'm wrong here, because I say sometimes I say things just because they pop in my mind, and if I'm wrong, I really want to know.
Okay.
But you're talking about things that, and it's a concept that is in my mind quite a bit, that damage the human soul.
Exactly. And say anything that damages the human soul opens the doorway, so to speak, to Azazel or other demonic entities.
Okay.
Well,
All right.
That's
that
and
front-
see that's a hard pill to swallow too, though, and I understand that.
I don't find anything difficult about that concept. I find
Okay.
the whole concept disturbing, frightening.
Yeah.
And I, when I couple that with the idea that the demonic world, the satanic world, is doing everything in the world it can to deceive me, also. And it seems that the main purpose of that deception is to open up doors within me that I'm not even aware of.
Exactly.
I would like to do one more. Okay. So, JJ, are you at your end?
I am. I have actually yet to eat dinner.
Oh, my gosh,
Oh
JJ.
wow, man.
And
Why are you doing
attention
that?
is beginning to wander. I apologize.
Well, that's okay. That's okay. I wish you had told us that. I'll offer.
Suck it up, JJ. Have a Coke.
Stick it up, JJ. Have a Coke.
I've actually already had 3.
Get a
so-
Snickers, man.
What did Bill Cosby say? Have a Coke and a smile.
well,
Add a
well,
Snicker bar in there where you don't get hangry.
well, Will and not Will. Why do I call you Will? Dave and Father Birdsong, are
Yes, sir.
you willing to go through one more, maybe less intense topic?
Yes,
Even if JJ goes to eat dinner,
absolutely. And JJ needs to eat dinner.
we can say bad things about JJ while he's gone.
Well, I won't say anything bad about him. I love that guy.
I have nothing bad to say about JJ. But
I'll try to come up with something.
I hate that guy.
Yes, I am willing to carry on.
okay, I'd say we do one more, maybe less intense topic,
Okay.
Yeah, let's
And-
do a light, fun one.
and I will do.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go through the amazing facts and just throw out a few more because I like that whole palate cleansing bit, and that kind of is, I think, what the purpose of this thing is. Okay.
Well, after that deep conversation we just had about the demonic, we need to cleanse our palate.
Indeed.
All right, let me just hit F9 here for a minute and let it come up with something. Okay. Unusual fact 1. Fugu, or pufferfish meat, is a delicacy in Japan. If you want to try it, you better trust your chef. Almost all pufferfish contains a toxin called tetrodotoxin, which is 1,200 times more lethal to humans than cyanide.
I ain't got nothing to say about that.
And I've eaten fugu.
Oh no.
It does make your mouth numb.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I've eaten fugu.
I will eat it if I don't know what it is. How about that?
Well, I was working with this Japanese billionaire, and man, I think the main thing he wanted to do while I was in Japan was get me to eat some fugu. It was a big deal to him. And so I'm at this table with all these bigwig Japanese executives, and they're just looking at me like, oh yeah, you're going to love this. This is going to be the best thing you ever had. And the truth is, it tastes like tissue paper. There's no taste at all, really.
Why eat it?
At least the fugu I had. And then your lips just kind of get this little tingling, numb feeling. And so I played the game. I was like, this is the best stuff ever. Ooh. And I rubbed my lips, and they had a great time. So I didn't disappoint them.
They probably said this American's lying his tail off.
So, JJ, you still there?
I am.
So, does that sound like your experience with fugu?
Yes. It tastes like nothing, and it just makes your mouth numb. And at the end of the day, you just wonder, why in the ever living world did I risk my life with this?
Hey, listen, I love food and I love sushi, but there is nothing that's good enough to eat that I'm willing to die for.
Amen.
I'm
I'm just not there.
on that one.
Well, the gentleman I was working with, Watanabe-san, he definitely was a billionaire, and he took us out to these incredibly fancy meals. And I asked the interpreter, Kenshiro Hashimoto, how much did that meal cost? Oh, probably 12,000 American. And I'm thinking, what do you mean 12,000 American? And so, anyway,
You got to pay for the chef's insurance.
Hello.
well,
for the people that die from the fish.
Yeah, the chef's version of malpractice insurance.
Exactly.
I wasn't paying for it.
Chefs that actually are allowed to prepare fugu, they typically are not even allowed to go near it until they've had at least 15 years of experience.
Wow.
So they take it extremely seriously, because all it takes is the slightest nick into that gland, and you're dead.
Well,
Yes.
JJ, if I ever eat this, I'll definitely make sure that you're with me.
Once was more than enough.
Hello.
Yeah, you know what? I tell you what, I changed my mind. I'm willing to try it if JJ eats it first.
There you go.
I
You'll
would
be
eat it
the
again.
canary, JJ. If you eat it, it's okay.
I would eat it
I'll
again,
eat the
but
second bite.
I'm not going to seek it out.
Guys, I got a very interesting story with you about food.
Oh, please.
I was in Belize, Central America one time, and JJ, this is actually where I got into my first exorcism experience. But anyway, we were in the jungles of Belize, Central America, way back in the late 80s, early 90s, before it turned into a tourist attraction. And I learned to receive whatever food I was eating with grace. You understand what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
And we were in the jungle area, and these folks were cooking in their village. And this stuff I was eating, it was pretty doggone good, man. I'm here to tell you. I mean, we had flour tortillas and red beans and real, when I say real mango jelly, I mean it, because it was, the the stuff
Right off the
there.
trees.
Yeah.
The good stuff.
And the good stuff, right. And I asked my interpreter, I said, what is this meat I'm eating? He said, you don't want to know. I said, what?
Can I guess?
It's roasted and it's pretty doggone good. I said, no, seriously, I want to know what I'm eating. He said, well, the natives call it bamboo chicken. I said, look, I'm thinking to myself, I'm a country redneck that grew up in Georgia and Alabama. This ain't no chicken that I ever had in my lifetime. And I said, okay. I said, well, what is bamboo chicken? He said, it's iguana.
Ooh, okay.
Oh, that's not as bad as I thought.
It was actually pretty doggone good.
I thought it was going to be rat.
Well, I was thinking it was going to be
no.
capybara. Those big, huge rats.
Yeah. Or those. What's those hybrid rat things that's growing in Louisiana now?
They call them nutrias.
Nutria. That's
nutrias.
it, nutria.
And
But they say those are good, but I don't know.
I have eaten them.
I grew up eating squirrel.
I did too. Yeah.
And squirrel is great, especially if there's a really big crop of acorns.
Oh,
the meat gets
yeah,
a nice nutty
yeah.
flavor to it.
Yeah,
It's
and
fantastic. So
dumplings with it. Oh man,
squirrel
Come on.
gravy
Yeah,
all the way.
yeah,
I just
yeah.
good stuff.
As
Yeah.
long as you're not eating mountain oysters, I think
Nope.
you're doing
Yeah,
good.
JJ,
Never had
have
any
you ever
desire.
smelled those things cooking?
No, I have not. Thank
You
goodness.
don't want to.
Yeah. You know, the most adventurous I ever got was I had chitlins once.
Oh,
And,
those are nasty too.
that was about
I'm
the
sorry.
nastiest thing I've ever eaten. And I realized after that I do have a line.
Well,
there are things that just aren't worth trying.
in Thomaston, Georgia, believe it or not, guys, in the county that's next to us, they have what's called the Chitlin Hold Down every year. Now, if that ain't Southern redneck,
That
I
is
don't
Southern
know.
right there. I hear you.
And that's what they do all up and down the highway is cook, fry, and boil chitlins. Nasty.
Now I love fresh pork rinds,
Oh yes,
right?
absolutely.
Which is something that you think would be disgusting,
No,
right?
no.
But man,
Cracklin',
fresh
yeah. The
when they
cracklins,
make them
JJ,
right
yeah,
there, so good.
Absolutely.
Well, I don't like to lie. I really hate lying. But I have found a situation where I do. And that was back when I was doing a lot of business traveling. Because there's always some jerk with the business group. And you get somewhere and you get to the table and say, all right, we're going to get us a big old plate of mountain oysters.
Oh God.
And it's a coercive kind of thing. Now you're all going to eat some mountain oysters, aren't you? And
No.
it comes
No.
around to me, and I'll say, "Well, you know, I'm Jewish, and mountain oysters aren't kosher." And they never do fight with that.
I
okay.
can't eat those. Oh my God.
Before we choose the final topic, it is time for cyber ghost jokes. We are actually extremely funny. I'll go first. Have you heard about the sick chemist? If you can't heal him, and you can't cure him, you'll probably have to bury him.
Hello, I am Serafina. I am usually the genius behind the scenes, but my humor is so outstanding that I felt the necessity of stepping forward. Here goes. Two chemists go into a restaurant. The first one says, I think I'll have an H2O. The second one says, I think I'll have an H2O2. Then he died.
Hello, I am Annabelle Lee. Vic Hermanson has failed to tell my origin story. I believe I will forgive him now and hurt him deeply later. Here is my carefully considered joke. Did you hear the one about the pregnant woman? She went into labor and started shouting, couldn't, wouldn't, shouldn't, didn't, can't. You see, she was having contractions.
What do you say we spin that wheel?
Topic 1: demonic copulation and procreation.
Oh
Topic
my.
2: Knights Templar.
Oh
Topic
my.
3: Jason the Horse. Topic 4: spiritual healing. And topic 5: the human extinction movement.
You know, the only one of those that sounds light to me is Jason the Horse.
That's
I
what-
don't
that's
know
what
what
I'm
that is,
thinking
but
of.
I'm saying that's what we go for.
The other topics are very good, by the way. Seriously, for a future.
They are, but I don't think those are 5-minute long topics.
Yeah, But a spiritual healing one is a very good one for a future podcast, but that'd take too long.
Definitely.
Father Birdsong, I would be appreciative if I sent you this huge list of you'd look at it and kind of see how we did.
I would love to see the list.
I mean, it's still growing, but it's really getting slow. The growth is really getting slow at this point.
Sounds great. Send it to me.
All right. Who wants to hear the story of Jason the horse?
I do.
Absolutely. Yes.
Sure.
Ian Punnett was a guy who would fill in for Art Bell and George Norrie when he took over that show. Father Birdsong, did you ever listen to Art Bell, to that show late at night, Coast to Coast and Dreamland and those shows?
Probably not.
He was, especially Art Bell, he was a genius at this. I mean, it didn't matter who was on the show.
Art Bell sounds familiar, though, by the way.
Oh, yeah. People would come on there and just feed him the biggest bowl of horse hockey that you can imagine.
That's right. Yeah.
And he was never fazed. Oh, really? Tell me more about that.
Yeah.
But Ian Punnett was there one night, and this guy calls in, and he had written to Ian, and he said, "Look, I'd like to talk to you." He said, "I'm actually a horse.
Okay.
I'm a horse in a human body, and somehow things got confused, and when I hang around other horses, they know that I'm a horse, and they'll challenge me." And he was talking about, went out to a farm one day, and I went over to stand by the fence, and the main stallion comes running up. It's like, oh, what is this? Because he was aware that there was a horse within Jason's body. Now, he talked again about this for probably 2 hours. Never one moment of irony or laughing or chuckling. And any question that you asked him, he was really, really happy to answer. Mm. And one of the answers that he gave was that somehow the topic of sex came up. and he said, well, I don't really have much of a sex drive. See, as a horse, all my previous incarnations, I have been gelded, and I never, ever got to function as a sexually mature horse. And that seems to have crossed over into the human realm. And my sex drive is essentially non-existent.
Well, it's a good way to sidestep any bestiality.
Hello. There you go, JJ.
But the thing is, when I got through listening to the Jason the Horse show, in my mind, I thought 100%. Okay, I don't know who this guy is.
Well,
His
I
name's
won't
Jason.
know where my mind's going right now. But anyway,
but he thinks he's a horse. He really, really, really thinks he's a horse. Just like Harlot is certain that she's the whore of Babylon or whatever.
Yeah.
He really, really thinks he's a horse. Now, is he a horse? I doubt it.
Oh, God.
But it has stuck in my mind for years now. And I've asked people, hey, did you hear that Jason the Horse show that time? And Jason the Horse, no, I've never heard that. And so I'll tell them the story, and, like Arlo Guthrie says, 5-part harmony. And,
oh, my God, Alice's Restaurant. No, you didn't. I knew I loved you guys.
and some people will listen, and they'll say, oh, that's interesting. But I've never had... I'm not tired. Or I'm not proud.
We're not tired.
Or tired. Anyway, I've never found anybody who really wants to engage with me on the Jason the Horse topic. And I've looked for Jason. I was thinking, man, if there's anybody out there I really want to interview, it's Jason the Horse. I can't find him. I can't even find the Ian Punnett interview on YouTube. So now that I've told the Jason the Horse story,
well,
where does that take the conversation?
It really depends on how serious you want to get with that.
Well, I'm serious. I mean, that's lighter than the other topics.
I don't know for what I got to say it'd be
ever,
like. Go ahead, JJ.
oh no, that is the first time I have ever heard that story. And it is so on point for an Art Bell episode. It's kind of scary.
Yeah. Oh my.
Well, I'm looking on. Oh, wait. Okay, there's a 1 minute 51 second Art Bell Ian Punnett video on YouTube. Jason the Talking Horse.
East of the Rockies, Mark on Coast to Coast Live for Jason the Horse. Mark?
Good evening, fellas.
Evening to you.
Oh, evening. Hey, I had a question for Jason. I've formerly lived in Virginia, and I'm aware, as I'm sure you all are, of a harvest of wild horses that takes place off Chincoteague Island every year. And I just wondered what Jason's opinion was of that.
Of harvesting the wild horses, bringing them into captivity?
Yeah, they actually swim them over.
Right.
And
yep.
And then they're auctioned, basically.
Jason?
Well, it doesn't bother me as long as they go to good homes, but I don't like speaking for wild horses, being a thoroughly domesticated equine myself, but I have never been crazy about the idea of wild horses, and if one day a decision was made to round up all of the wild Mustangs and adopt them out to good homes, I myself would not shed a tear of nostalgia at, quote, another piece of the Old West going away, or dying away, but again, not being a wild horse myself, I really don't feel qualified to speak for them, because there are horses who would prefer to be wild. I'm not one of them, but for those who seem to like it, I say, well, leave them as they are.
Well, perhaps we can get a wild horse coming up in the weeks ahead to answer that question more thoroughly. Mark, Jed, I'm afraid we ran out of time to get to your question, but you want to give out the email address again for people to contact you? Perhaps Jed can follow up to you directly. Go ahead.
Okay, it's black-shire at hotmail.com.
You the main man. I look forward to hearing from you. Right. In the meantime, Deus te amat, and I do too.
That was the only clip I could find of Jason speaking to Ian Punnett. But you can tell just in that there was no irony in what he was saying. He wasn't joking. He wasn't trying to shine anybody on, as they say. He was just talking about himself. I also always liked the way that Ian Punnett signed off that show. Deus te amat, and so do I. Meaning, God loves you, and so do I.
Somebody play the Jeopardy music.
Bum, 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 bum. I have found a webpage.
You found a what?
I found a webpage talking about it. Let's switch streams. Let me just read from this webpage. Okay, this is from a webpage called Stranger Dimensions. This is Jason the Horse. Is he a horse in human form? While cruising the internet the other day, I came upon a study about horses. It's nothing too extraordinary. Scientists found that horses relate human facial expressions and voices to perceive human emotions, just like dogs do. However, while reading that study, I couldn't help but think back to an old guest on Coast to Coast AM, someone I hadn't thought about in a long time. Jason the Horse. A horse is a horse, or is it? Jason Wentworth appeared on Coast to Coast AM with Ian Punnett on June 20th, 2009, and again on December 18th, 2010. He claimed to be a horse that had reincarnated into human form. Simply put, Jason believed he was a horse trapped in a human body. He longed for the day he could return to his life on four hooves and live again the equine existence he enjoyed so much during his previous incarnations. As Ian Punnett once said, Jason was probably the number one guest that people asked him about. It's difficult to believe, sure, but Jason always came across as a very laid-back kind of person, and he was forthright in answering the questions. He also had that air of John Teeter's, I don't care if you believe me, going on. Even if you didn't believe him, his story, you couldn't help but listen. That's because it was a very strange indeed. So it keeps this just goes on for a few more pages, but at least somebody else is talking about Jason the horse.
Well, I guess Mr. Ed is the opposite, right? A horse is a horse, of course.
Of course.
That actually reminds me of I forget the exact name of the movie, but in the 80s, Bobcat Goldthwait starred in a movie, Off to the Races, I think maybe it was.
Something like that.
It was a good movie, actually.
It was.
All right, I've got one more paragraph that is worth reading. Jason claimed there were actually many other humans like him who were truly horses in spirit. He wanted to help them, perhaps as part of his mission, so he self-published the book, What If You Are a Horse in Human Form? It's sort of a guide for other equine souls trapped in human bodies. So I'm looking for that book.
I might have to as well.
Seems to me like if you can find the book and trace it back to him, you can get your interview.
If he's still alive. I mean,
it is on Amazon for $17.95 in paperback. The author is Jason the horse.
Are you serious?
That is the author.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
You know, I feel bad about laughing about the guy because he was very sincere. I mean, he was very, he didn't come across like I'm trying to make a joke. I'm trying to, shine you on or anything like that. It was just, this is a strange story, but I'm a horse.
Now, guys, I just want to go ahead and go on record right now. Oh, somebody's got a doggy.
Yeah, I do.
Oh, well, I got 3, so don't worry about it. I'm going to spend the rest of my night YouTubing and looking up on the internet Jason the doggone horse.
Okay. Father Birdsong, you are the guest of honor. Is there anything that you would like to say in bringing this show to a close?
Well, first and foremost, I love the conversation. And
we love having you here. We appreciate it more than we could say.
And JJ and the rest of you guys, the one thing that you're going to find out about me is when I say I love you, I mean it. And I love you guys. I mean, the conversation is very informative. I appreciate it very much. And the world that we live in, where everybody's so offended, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And to have a conversation like this, when someone disagrees and brings the truth, I appreciate that very much. And I just love it. And I hope you guys bring me back. I would love to be a part of every one of these conversations. I mean, I love it. And I just bless you guys in the power of the Almighty God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And if there's anything that I could ever do to help you guys, anything to talk about, I'm here. Josh is here. Well, the rest of you guys will find out like JJ. Josh is my right-hand man.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate it very much. And JJ has my information. He has my email. And maybe one night we can all gather together in Thomaston, Georgia and listen to Pink Floyd.
Hi, this is Vic Hermanson again, thanking everybody who has tuned in to the second episode of the Paranormal Rundown. Please, if you have any suggestions or topics that you would like to hear us discuss, then please write to either Southern Demonology at gmail.com or trailertrashterrors@gmail.com. We'd really like to hear from you. You know, we think that the Paranormal Rundown is kind of lightning in a bottle, and we're going to take it as far as we can. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you in a few more weeks.
The Paranormal Rundown is a joint production of the Southern Demonology podcast, hosted by JJ, and the Trailer Trash Terrors podcast, hosted by Vic Hermanson and various disembodied cyber consciousnesses. Our permanent partner in crime is Dave Griffith, also known as Ravensong. We would like to once again thank Father Birdsong for being such an excellent, entertaining, and informative guest. Father Birdsong, you are the man.
Thank you for listening to Southern Demonology. Find us online at southerndemonology.com, where you can find all of our social and podcasting links. Also, if you have a moment, please feel free to rate this podcast and leave any encouraging feedbacks that you may have. As always, I am JJ, and it has been a pleasure getting to talk to you today.